small group that I did. And then we have a third guest with us, Rich Jones, who is a glutton for punishment. Actually, any reason to come to Rosso is a good reason, right? Rich was actually here worshiping with us on our building dedication Sunday, and a couple of other times when him and his family vacation up here. He's a presiding elder for the eastern part of the West Plains Conference. So Mike is the president pro tem. So think he's not a bishop because bishops have not been elected, but he is serving, can I say this, kind of in that capacity at this point? Is that a decent assessment? And they have all of the answers to every single question you will ask. They will not disappoint you. And so I'm going to hand it over to them. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. And then I think at the end, Mike, if it's okay, I'm going to have Bill, our ad council chair, come up and pray over us before we leave. That's awesome.
Thank you all. It is fantastic to be here. There's a few people in the room I know. I apologize to you up front for my voice tonight. The doctor Monday morning told me I had a bad sinus infection and ear infection. I think my wife thought I was crazy for coming to the mountains today. My ear has felt it all day, but it's good. I was not going to miss getting to, one, come to Ruidoso, but two, coming to be a part with you guys. I am the president pro tem in the West Plains Conference. People ask me, well, what does that mean? And I said, we're trying to figure that out. So I've been on the job 2 months. We intentionally, when the conference was formed in the Global Methodist Church, we intentionally did not use Texas in the name and naming the conference because we believe God was calling us to something bigger than just the panhandle of Texas. We believe from the very beginning that those of you out here in New Mexico possibly could be a part of whatever God was doing in this group. Maybe people in the Oklahoma Panhandle, who knows, maybe some in Southern Colorado, I have no idea. So we intentionally felt God leading us to stay away from using Texas in the name. Now, I am not lifelong, but mostly lifelong Texan, and it grieved my heart not to have Texas in the title, I'll just tell you. But it is really cool what God is doing. So as of today, we have 110 churches in the West Plains Conference of the Global Methodist Church. And more coming all the time. Those churches, the national leadership of the Global Methodist Church has said that any churches that disaffiliate in New Mexico and choose to go to the Global Methodist Church would be a part of our conference. So that's why we're here. That's why we're sharing with you. I know you guys are still trying to decide. I know you voted out, but you're still trying to decide or going to decide what you're going to do from this point on. So Les and I are just going to talk to you for a few minutes. We would rather keep most of the time for question and answers so that we are speaking to what you want to know about rather than just what we want to tell you about. The Global Methodist Church is not just a new denomination, it is a new movement. And they have been very intentional about saying that because they are working very hard to not duplicate what usually happens in denominations. And that is that the top grows really large, and the top is what controls the organization. So the Global Methodist Church has the philosophy, we're going to flip the paradigm completely, and the local church is the focus of everything we do. The local church is where the shots are called. The local church, we're going to return power back to the local church, and the local church is not just here to serve a denomination, it's here to reach people for Jesus. And those in the hierarchy of the denomination, which there are very few of us, that small structure above you is here for one reason, and that is to serve you, to serve your needs, to help you become the most effective congregation for Jesus that you can be. So we have an office in Lubbock now. And if any of you know Lubbock, the Pyramid Plaza building is kind of an icon on the south side of Lubbock, the South Loop in Indiana. It's a glass pyramid building. A couple of doctors bought it last year and have been gutting all the inside, redoing all the offices. The reason we were attracted there, they priced it the cheapest rent in South Lubbock. And our cheapest rent also includes our custodial service and utilities. So something you need to know about our new denomination, cheap works. And I'll talk more to you about that here in a minute. But myself, Les, and Rich are all in that office. We have one other presiding elder, Darren Skinner, and Darren offices in Amarillo. He's handling the northern part of our world. He will take all of the churches in New Mexico that disaffiliate from I-40 north. Les will have all of them south of I-40. So Les will be the DS from DS. Les will be the presiding elder. And here in a minute, he's going to tell you how it's very different from the old district superintendent position, because he was one of those before he came to us. So he can speak to that really well. But our passion is to strip away structure so that it takes a lot less resources out of the local church. It returns resources to the local church. It returns the power to the local church, and that we are here to serve you rather than you serving us. So there are very few committees in the conference. There are no district committees whatsoever. And our passion for that is, for too long, all of us have spent way too much time in meetings and not near enough time out in the world trying to reach people for Jesus. So we are stripping everything down to get back to the basics and get back to the heart of what we really want to be about. Let's see, Les, I'll tell you what, I'll let Les come up now and talk to you about what is a presiding elder and what is this new thing.
All right. My wife's name is Sue, and she said, make sure that you say the right name for the city, Ruidoso. Did I say that right? Okay. My whole life, I've always said Ruidosa. We're going to Ruidosa and go skiing. So I've really worked on that. Ruidoso. So, all right. I am very humbled to be a presiding elder. I'm so excited about that. And so, as Mike mentioned, that word that keeps coming up is to serve. And so presiding elders are here to serve. We're here to serve the church, and we're here to serve and help your pastor. And so when we think about this area that I'm a part of, I just wanted to kind of share the area. Starts in Lubbock. My area goes from Lubbock to Tulia, to Hereford, to the state line, and then south to Midland, and then to the state line. And then May 20th, then it's south of I-40 and all of New Mexico. So I'm excited to be your presiding elder. And so when we think about serving, I'm going to serve as a resource. I'm going to serve as a shepherd for the pastors. I remember going through the training as a district superintendent in the UMC. One of the things they kept stressing was you cannot be a pastor to pastors because you're an administrator. And so in my heart, in my spirit, I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. But I'm telling you, there were so many meetings and so many things you had to do that all of a sudden you got to that point where you couldn't be a pastor to pastors because there are other things that you had to do that it really wasn't making a difference for the kingdom of God. And so that's why I'm so excited about being a presiding elder, is because no district meetings, hardly any other meetings. So that means I can spend more time in the local church and also being with your pastor and other pastors. And so I'm here to help any way that I can. It also includes being a coach, and I'm learning to know what that means. And so to help be a coach, to help coach you, and to help you to be the church that God has called you to be. Not only that, but to celebrate with you. Celebrate with salvations and baptisms. Man, I want to celebrate and know that the kingdom of God is growing, and I want to be a part of that. Also, helping to cast vision. Come alongside and just be there with you and with your pastor, casting vision, helping to make disciples. So the mission statement for the Global Methodist Church is we are here to make disciples who worship. Do y'all know what that next word is? Passionately. All right. Love extravagantly. Witness. Amen. Good job. No, I'm talking to you, Dustin. And that's important to help build the kingdom of God. And so I want to be an encourager. I want to build that trust. I want to build those relationships. And I want to be that for you. And so as we're doing things differently, I just want to touch on something just really quick. It's how we make appointments. Now, do you love your pastor? Yes. All right. Pastor, do you love being in this church? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave him here. We're not going to wait for 2 or 3 more years and think, okay, it's time for him to move. If you love your pastor and he loves being here, we want him to stay and to be your pastor. But if there is a change, the way we're doing this is the church has more say in the process. The church will develop a profile of the pastor, a profile of the community, a profile of the church, and also there will be an online survey that the church will take, and we'll gather all that information. Also, you will get to interview your future pastors. That's a part of what you get to do and be a part of the process. But I'm so excited to hear you love your pastor, and I'm so excited your pastor loves to be here. So Mike,
Thanks.
that's just one of the few things that are different in the Global Methodist Church.
So what I'm emphasizing to these guys, and man, the 3 of them have been living it out in amazing ways the first 2 months of this. We are here to serve, and we want to get to know people. We want people to trust us. This is not going to be the model where the powers to be, we live kind of in awe or wonder what they're going to do to us next or what they're going to tell us to do next. We're not going to do that. We're going to build relationships with you guys. We want to know you. We want to know who you are. So we are freeing these guys up to spend a whole lot more time in the churches and with people. As Les said, the new mission statement of the Global Methodist Church, to make disciples of Jesus Christ who worship passionately, love extravagantly, and witness boldly. We are trying to convince our churches to reinvent your church around that mission statement. And a lot of churches are doing all 3 of those things well. Some churches are doing 1 of those things well. Some are doing 2 of those things. Some of them are not doing any of those things. So what we're trying to help people understand is this is how we're going to measure the effectiveness and the life and the vitality of our churches. One other thing before we open it up for questions, because I know you'll ask me, and this way I can just cut off the questions, and that is money. Right? Somebody was going to ask me about that, right? So here's what we have in the Global Methodist Church. If you don't know this, how it works in your current United Methodist world, in the United Methodist Church, which the 3 of us have been a part of our entire lives, In the United Methodist world, budgets are formed at the national level, well, actually at a worldwide level at General Conference every 4 years. So you create a national level of budget, then the conference creates its budget, and you kind of put those two together and say, here's the amount we need for next year, and then we divvy up the pie among all the churches in the conference. All right. Now here in New Mexico, y'all have been on a tithe system, right? You tithe 10%, that's right, 8%, and then the other 2 is pension or whatever, right? Yes. So in the Global Methodist Church, done very differently. It is done with a percentage, a little bit like New Mexico Conference does it. But in the Global Methodist Church, in the transitional book of Doctrines and Discipline, which is kind of the transitional rule book right now in place for the Global Methodist Church, the general church can ask for up to 1.5% of your operating income from the previous year. So in other words, you sit down, look at last year's books, figure out what was your operating income. That includes paying staff, doing ministry, utilities, insurance, all the stuff to just run the church. It does not include any missions giving. It does not include any capital improvements. It doesn't include like memorial funds or designated funds, that kind of stuff. It's just your basic operating budget. So the general church can ask for up to 1.5%. They are currently asking for 1% from all churches that go to the GMC. The conference can ask for up to 5%. And so the West Plains Conference, because we had no clue how many churches were coming with us in the beginning, and we had no clue if the 3 of us would get paid, the conference decided to set ours at 5%. And here's what I want you to know. I can say this with confidence tonight. This is done very differently in the global church. It's called connectional funding rather than apportionments. There's no bills being sent out to anybody. There is no pressure. There's no district superintendent telling you got to pay 100% of your apportionments. There's none of that. We just say to people, okay, here's your 5%. However God leads you to pay this, pay it. We have been blown away by what has happened in 2 months. So I can say with a lot of confidence, next year, it won't be 5%. It could be 4%, might even drop to 3%. I don't know. But the giving has been so overwhelming and so generous, we'll be able to lower the percentage come next year. And so it's just a different world where people are giving for different reasons, and they seem to be doing it with a lot of excitement and joy. And so anyway, so your church would be at a 6% level. So it would drop your connectional funding if you were to unite with us this year. But here's the thing we're doing. We will say to all the New Mexico churches, because it costs you so much to get out, if you feel like you need to hold off a year and start giving in 2024, that's great with us. And we just give you the rest of this year as grace if y'all need to do that. The passion of the Global Methodist Church is to put resources back into the local church. That less money is leaving the local church and going somewhere else, so that you all can get even more serious about ministry in the community, about mission work around the world, about adding staff, starting new ministries. Our hope is that we're going to put a whole lot more money back in the local church, and we're going to see a lot more fruit directly from that kingdom work and kingdom giving. So it's a whole different philosophy about money. We are keeping all structure to a minimum and keeping all expenses as low as we possibly can. There will be no programming done at the conference level. That is, we're not going to do it. So if people say, well, the conference needs this, then we'll say, okay, God laid that on y'all's heart. Why don't you get together with a few other churches? Let's make it happen. We'll help you make it happen. But things are going to come up from the local church, not down from the conference and the top. All right, I'm going to stop talking. And Les and I and Rich can jump in. He said he wasn't going to answer anything. And then we were over at Alamogordo and he corrected us a few times. So anyway, he'll probably keep us straight on the straight and narrow. So we just want to open the floor for questions. Anything's fair game about what does it mean to go to the Global Methods? Would you repeat the questions? Yes, I will do that. So if you ask it, Les or I will repeat it before we answer it. Who wants to be brave and go first? Okay. Yes.
Here, let me give you a microphone right quick.
First off, I'd like to thank you for coming and sharing this information with us. I have several questions, but I'm only going to ask one now, and then I'll ask the others after other people have had a chance to go. We all have different notions of why we're here in this current situation. But clearly one of the drivers seems to have been the issue regarding non-heterosexual individuals. Do you foresee, is there any desire at any kind of higher level or even across the churches to move backwards from where we are today? For instance, specifically, our pastor has said, and I identify with this, all people are welcome here at the church.
Absolutely.
And I would like to see that continue.
That would be the case.
And also, we have I must admit, I'm embarrassed to say this, but even as a Methodist, I don't know when we first started ordaining women as pastors.
Pastors, yes.
But again, I would hope to think we would not move backwards and that would continue on into the future.
Yes, I can address both of those issues. So one, we're going to be a people of grace, and grace gets extended to everybody. If we kept the sinners out, none of us would be in this room tonight. All right. And period. So, and we're not going to single out certain sins and say, well, that's worse than mine or worse than this. We're going to be a people who move and have a passion to move toward holiness, for all of us to be living lives where we're dealing with our own sin. So, but the doors, my hope and prayer is in every GMC church, the doors will be always open to any person who wants to walk through that door. As for women in ministry, the Global Methodist Church has kind of preached this from the mountaintops as they formed the national leadership team, and pretty much everything's been put in place so far. Women and minorities hold key positions. Matter of fact, the chair of the national leadership team started out as a woman. She stepped down because she became my position in the Mid-Texas Conference. And so it's a woman leading that conference over there. And the person who replaced her is a woman. So the GMC is fanatically committed to women in ministry and to minorities, and that we are going to be a people that we're not going to be an old white church. All right. That is our commitment. And now if we're honest, most of our churches around this part of the country are old white churches. So we're on a mission to change that. Others.
Have you both taken an oath as far as global ministry, and you are going to uphold your oath? And what happens if you don't uphold that oath?
Well, yes, when we became a Global Methodist Church pastor, we signed that we would agree with the transitional book of discipline and doctrine, that we would agree with that, and that we would teach it, and follow it. Do you have something to say? Oh, I thought you were getting up to talk. No, but so we've made a commitment to say yes. That we've made a commitment to follow the book of discipline.
And I've spoken to 68 churches on this, and your question is the number one question I get. Yes, we signed all of that document, but one of the things folks want to know is there teeth in the accountability process? Yes, there is. I would encourage you to go to the globalmethodist.org and the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines. It is all lined out there. It is streamlined. It is effective. If I, as a clergy person, if the church or the conference or a bishop, once we have them violate it, the process to move them to where they can either repent or be removed. And that process it's very clear in the Doctrine and Disciplines. Yeah.
In terms of finance, we're right now to carry all of the pastors' pension and everything else. Can you address that? Or are we free to move away from what we're having to do right now?
Let me see if my voice is back. In the global, we have a pension program similar to the United Methodist program, but better because there's no unfunded pension liability. So it's more like your 401k, something like that. I've got one up here, so thank you. The same group, Westpath, is handling the pension program for the Global Methodist Church that handles it for the United Methodist Church. The health insurance is same group is handling it for the Global Methodist Church that handles it for the United Methodist Church. And so as a local church, you are required to pay into the pastor's pension program. Health insurance, there are exemptions. If one of our spouses has better insurance somewhere else, we can be on that. You know, you couldn't do that in the United Methodist Church. And so it's a little bit different on the health insurance side.
And so with Ashley working for Region 9, obviously that's a state agency. Here she comes walking in. She had to take him to the doctor. I'll embarrass her real fast. So since she works for Region 9, we could actually potentially save the church $13,000 a year by switching from the Global Methodist Church insurance to switching to insurance with Region 9. And that would be a huge ask. I mean, $13,000 is a pretty chunk of change. So that would be my personal recommendation. Ashley's already worked with HR and her work to make that change happen. Should we go this way?
Yeah. Very good.
Or should
Good.
we not? Because we need insurance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Good question. Yes.
So if Ashley for some reason should lose her job, would you be able to get back on this insurance?
Yes. Yes. So the question was if say Dustin went on Ashley's insurance, she quits there or whatever, then it's no problem for Dustin to get back on the global insurance program. Yes.
So on the pension question, what happens to all the money that these pastors have put into the United Methodist pension?
Great question.
Where did that go?
Yep.
And can I ask a second question?
Sure. Go for it.
Will the Global Methodists get back into scouting?
Les, you want to do that?
So the Global Methodist will not get into scouting, from my understanding. Your church can have them meet here. They can a facility use agreement, and you can have them meet here, but you're not going to be the sponsor for the boys. The church will not be the sponsor for the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts.
there's not been a mandate across the Global Methodist Church on that. That's just not something we're dealing with yet. That falls in line with the church by church, our focus on the local church. Our strong recommendation is that you follow a facilities use agreement rather than a charter. And that's because of the fallout that has happened with Scouts and United Methodist Church and all the other lawsuits and everything that was taking place over the last many years. It is a wiser arrangement to facilitate scouting to do it that way. And so it's a strong recommendation, but I don't know that there's a mandate out there.
Yeah, no, that's true. What was your other question? Yes.
So they'll keep it.
Nothing changes. All of his money stays in his account. It's all good.
It is administered by the same group, West Path.
Yeah. All right. Question is there a trust clause in the Global Methodist Church? You all have already voted out. Come May 20th, no matter what you decide to do next, you will be released from the trust clause, May the 20th, if the annual conference votes you out. Okay. In the Global Methodist Church, there is no trust clause. The national leaderships have made it very clear there will never be a trust clause. So you have full control of your property. You don't need to go ask a committee. You know, y'all went through a building program here. You went through a few committees to get the building going. I have been down that road before. I know that world. That will not be the case at all in the Global Methodist Church. You have full control of your property. You can buy, sell, build, do whatever you want. It's your property. No, well. I heard y'all spent some money on the parsonage, so it's awesome.
We fall out of love with you in a couple years.
Yep. Good question. You want to do that one, Les?
What can we do?
Well, you just need 90 days of prayer and discernment, and then have a vote. Your council can determine when that date will be, and then if you vote 50 plus 1, a majority vote, you can vote out, and you're gone. We don't want your building. We don't want anything. If you're not happy and satisfied being a part of a Global Methodist Church, then that's fine.
There would be no cost to
Yeah,
exit at all.
That's right. No cost at all.
Yep.
Could you quickly just go over the orthodoxy of the Global Methodist Church?
All right. So the question, go over the orthodoxy of the Global Methodist Church. If you get on the Global Methodist Church's national website, globalmethodistchurch.org, globalmethodist.org, if you go there, you can access the transitional book of Doctrines and Discipline. The first, I don't know how many pages of it, is the doctrine part. It is all built on scripture and the historic creeds of the faith. And so it is as orthodox a Wesleyan theology as you will ever find. Nothing out of the ordinary. Very, very biblically sound. And if you read through it, I'll be honest with you, it's very similar to what's in the United Methodist Church's Book of Discipline. I mean, the same stuff, there's a little more in the global, but same stuff's in the United Methodist belief section of the discipline too. Both have very orthodox theology. The difference, what was lifted up earlier, is there are very clear stipulations for those of us leading, pastoring churches. You're going to preach and teach that orthodox faith, or there will be consequences. Now, they're not going to be out on a witch hunt or something like that. It's going to be done with grace, but we're not going to veer off down some of these crazy paths that we veered off in the past, and there are no consequences. Is that answer? All right. Others.
Some of us were blessed and privileged to attend your convening conference a few weeks ago. What's the schedule, and will there be an annual, what we would call an annual conference every year to celebrate?
Yes. So if you were not able, I know as a small group from here that came to our convening conference, if you've ever been to an annual conference session, you know how exciting they are. If you've never been to an annual conference session, typically it's a whole lot of business interrupted occasionally by a little bit of worship. That's Mike's description. All right. So we took a totally different approach in the Global Methodist Church. This came from the leadership, national leadership, but it was also our conference leadership's desire. So we did a whole lot of worship, prayer, teaching, preaching, and about 30 minutes of business. The focus, we want to gather for community. We want to gather for worship. We want to gather to be taught. We want to gather to be challenged. We want to gather to pray together. So in the future, anytime we gather for an annual conference session, it will look like that. And we will gather annually, but we have already decided, or at least we're working on it right now, we would like to have a second conference this year in the latter part of the summer to welcome all the new people, not just those of you from New Mexico, but also the new ones from the old Northwest Texas who are coming in new also. So our hope, I'm waiting for permission from the national people to tell us what dates work for them, because we have to have bishops come out to ordain people. But we hope to have another big gathering. We hope in the probably latter part of July, but we'll be letting people know once we have dates solidified. But it's a different world, y'all. It was amazing. I didn't have a thing to do with planning it. I want you to know that. That's why I can tell you it was amazing.
And we're asking that same group to plan it again.
That's right. Y'all have good questions right here.
I have a question on the membership change.
Mhm.
How does that process work for us?
Okay.
Changing over.
So here's the deal. On May 20th, everybody who's on your membership roll will cease to be United Methodist. And this is an important thing. I came into this position out of the conference office in the Northwest Texas Conference. So we've been working with people on this to understand it. If there are people in this church that want to remain United Methodist, then you need to do something before May 20th. And that, I don't know how New Mexico's handling it. In the Northwest Texas Conference, they created an online congregation that people could move their membership to who wanted to remain United Methodist. Because when you're voted out, at that point, everybody's United Methodist membership that's on the roll ceases to be United Methodist. If you have voted to and have taken the steps to join the Global Methodist Church, at that point, your membership roll is moved to the Global Methodist Church. Now, some churches, when they do that, are asking people to renew their membership vows, to do that kind of thing. So it's totally up to your church how you want to handle that. Be up to Dustin, leadership. Do you all want to ask everybody to renew their vows, to, quote, rejoin, so to speak, that kind of thing. But if you join the Global Methodist Church as a church, your membership is moved to the Global Methodist Church. That's a great question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A question I have is, if there are people who love our church,
Mm-hmm.
but can't give up the United Methodist,
Yes.
they can still be a part of this church somehow?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what we want you to know, because this is over in the old Northwest Texas Conference, I'll just share from my own experience. A lot of our churches voted out 85, 90%, somewhere in that range. 10-15% of the congregation did not want to leave. I know you all voted 88%, right? That same range. So there were 12% of the people who were here when that day when you all voted who have no desire to leave. Now, and I want to say this to everyone, and some of those people may be here tonight. I hope and pray we are people of grace toward anyone and everyone. And there may even be people, I know the church I used to pastor in Plainview, one of the couples there were adamant about not leaving the United Methodist Church. They withdrew their membership before the church left, but they have continued to go there because their options are limited, just like they would be in Ruidoso. That you may not have all the choices you want to have, and this may be where people choose to come who choose not to unite with the Global Methodist Church. That is a possibility, and there's nothing keeping people from doing that.
And if you do want to retain your membership with the United Methodist Church, at this point, all the conference has put out is there is a sign-up list, and that's all they have. If they have anything more than that, I'll get the sign-up list in a couple of weeks when I get back into town. I'll be out next week, but I can email it on my weekly newsletter. And if they get more information, they know that I've asked for that, and we'll be able to help connect you with that as well.
Yep.
My question has to do with worldwide missions and other things. The UMC, they have offices doing stuff.
Right.
That how is, from disaster relief, all kinds of things along that nature, missions, what is happening with Global in that regard?
Yeah, great question. So because the Global is not going to focus on creating a lot of layers at the top, at this point in time, there is no Global Methodist Church mission sending agency. Probably what's going to happen is they're going to endorse or recommend certain agencies that are already in place, that are already sending missionaries around the world who reflect the same beliefs and values. But as a local church, you can decide where your missions money is going. And I've been asked in other meetings, somebody have said, well, can we continue to support UMCOR? Absolutely. If you believe that's a good place to do that kind of work and to give in that direction, you can absolutely continue to do that. You may have United Methodist missionaries you currently support. If you believe they reflect your values and your beliefs, then we would encourage you to continue to support.
And just an opportunity to promote something coming up in April at the Woodlands Methodist Church in down by Houston. There's a training seminar called Beyond These Walls that was envisioned by lay folks who are becoming Global Methodist folks to do training and equipping for local churches to be involved in missions ministries around the world and also across the street. So you can go to Beyond These Walls. I think it's beyondthesewalls.com.
Yeah.
And you can see all about that. And I encourage you to go to that. We're going to it. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
But the great thing is what you believe in and what you want to support, then go for it.
Yes.
And you have more money in your local church to do that. And even in this community, if there's things that you haven't supported before that you haven't felt like we don't have enough money to do that. Now, I mean, this is wide open, and you can really support those missions and those areas that you really resonate with, that you feel like are building the kingdom of God.
Is our payout due by May 20th?
See, I was going to say, I'll defer to Dustin. So, yeah.
No, it is actually due before then. And my week was super fun this week because the conference trustee chairperson put out a letter to churches that are disaffiliating, requesting that all changes in the local church including signage, name change, bank accounts, EIN numbers, which is a little hard for me to comprehend how we can disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church when we haven't been voted on to be able to disaffiliate from them. But I've already talked, Jim and I have talked extensively. Trustees met today already this morning, and Pete sitting there thinking, thank God I'm not the trustee chair this year, right? And trustees are actually going to meet again next week so that we can start taking, because we have to remove everything that has the flame and cross on it. So I don't know if you noticed when you walked through the door, the flame was off of the cross. I mean, that's all that's technically required because we're no longer infringing copyright at that point because we have our own little logo. So all of that has to be done by May the 6th at the absolute latest. The conference trustees are requesting that they receive it prior to May the 6th because they have to review all of our paperwork to ensure that it was done to their standards. And if it wasn't done to their standards, they could kick it back to us or tell us they're not going to allow us to disaffiliate. Now, I'm still a little emotional about this. So I'm going to not speak any more about it because I'm not super thrilled with those changes. But I will say as a pastor, we will try our best to do everything we can to meet their requirements. And if that's the direction we're moving anyway, I mean, we voted to disaffiliate. Then if they want us to start changing signs, let's start changing signs. If they want us to change bank account names, let's start doing it. And if they don't, well, I'll speak to that later.
And the one,
yes. So we currently, Jim, right? We currently do have the cash on hand out of general fund that we can pay it. Where we will do a capital campaign afterwards because I realize that some of our donors don't want to donate because if we're not allowed to disaffiliate, then that's technically still United Methodist it's still technically United Methodist money and their asset. And so we're kind of in this limbo phase. So we currently have the cash on hand, thankfully, out of general fund to pay for that. And we will take it out for that. And then starting May 21st, we will be doing a capital campaign where we're raising the funds for that. So you might just start thinking and praying about, can I set aside an amount of money? I do know that we've already brought in about $1,500, $2,000 to help pay for those costs. So if you want to donate it now, you can. If you want to wait till May 20th, you can. You can talk to Jim and I. Our finances are down a little bit because people are a little hesitant to give because of all the stuff that's going on.
And the exceptions on the cross and flame, just so everybody, because you will hear very different things, especially on Facebook. Hymnals, cross and flame on there. The United Methodist Publishing House sells those to anybody that wants to buy them. They cannot require you to remove those hymnals. Same way if you have Bibles with cross and flame on them. Anywhere the cross and flame is like in stained glass or in a cornerstone on a building, in stucco on the side of a building, those are exceptions to the rule and you do not have to remove those.
Bill, did you have?
Have you considered having people pledge or commit money ahead of time, conditional on us separating from UMC?
We've talked about that, yes, but I don't think we've had a finance committee meeting since and if you, I mean, we can easily do that as a finance committee, right? Finance committee chairperson. Who else is on finance? I'm trying to stir.
Pretty good indication of whether this is going to be a easy peasy or somewhere in between.
Right.
You know how much we need.
$132,089 and something. Isn't that right, Jim? Yeah, I'll pay the 99 cents. Y'all take care of the 132,000. 132.89, 87.99, I think. David. I'm going to mute it.
Yeah, this question may have already been answered and I may not have heard it, but one of the things that we've seen here in the church over the last year that the conference, UMC conference here has done that's pretty exemplary has helped us to launch a Tuesday night dinner church ministry that's been fairly successful and is looking like it, will be more successful. And I understand, I don't know all the ins and outs of how all the monies work, but I know it was through a conference grant that I understand was probably funded by what they call shared ministries or something like that. And I was just wondering, will there be a program like that helping local churches launch new initiatives within the structure?
That's very good question. So at the present time, the answer is no, because we're trying to keep the conference budget as minimal as possible to keep more money here where you have that money, as opposed to sending it to us for us to send it back to you. Now, could something change down the road? It's possible. We could start some new program that's voluntary, that would be voluntary for people to give toward, or something like that as a conference. But at the moment, in the current situation we're in, there will not be funds to be given out from the conference level.
And just real fast, in New Mexico, actually, most of the funds that come for new church development come from selling of old property.
Yeah.
And so because the local church doesn't own the property, so when the local church closes, it belongs to the conference trustees at that point. The conference trustees sell a building for $1 million. The way the New Mexico Annual Conference is set up is half of that money goes to new church development. So, we sell a property in Hobbs for $1.2 million. New church development instantly gets $600,000 overnight.
Yeah. But that's a very good question. It's gonna require, we're already finding this 2 months in. It's a huge mindset shift from the way we've always thought and worked as United Methodists. Other questions?
How long has there been a global national organization?
They were officially launched May of last year. So not quite a year old. It's hard to keep up with numbers because people are joining the Global Methodist Church every single day. So when I'm on national Zoom calls with the national leadership, they try to keep us updated every once in a while. Rich or Les, have you all heard? Hey, Rich, have you heard of a recent number on how many Global Methodist churches there are now? So I think it's around
About 1,700 right now. Right?
See, I was thinking it crossed the 2,000 mark.
It's about 2,500
Yeah.
worldwide.
Yeah.
There's close to there's 700 of those in Texas.
They refer to it as the Texodus of the UMC, but
and I'll tell you, one of the criticisms we get is that it's going to be just a U.S. centric and South U.S. kind of thing. Let me tell you some of the places where Global Methodist churches are getting started. The very first larger groups, annual conference size groups, were Bulgaria and Romania. They joined very first. Slovakia is in the process. Poland is in the process. Parts of Eurasia are in the process. There are 3 annual conferences in Africa in the process. And the Methodist Church of Costa Rica has it on their docket to vote on joining the Global Methodist Church later this spring. We really truly are going to be global in scope.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, anybody love the name global? No, nobody does. There's a couple of folks kind of, maybe. But anybody that jumped their hand up would have been the first one in all the meetings I've done. The reason we're using the word global, I think some of the reason, particularly in our part of the world, there's some pushback, is because they hear the political movement from the secular world known as globalism, and they think there's a connection. There isn't. There's no connection with that. Where global comes from is our friends in Africa and the Philippines, who said to us, we don't want to be second-class citizens at a U.S. table again. We want to be partners with you at the same place. Will you please use a different word so that we know we're a part of this? And so that's where the word global came from. And so, there's 2,500 and it's growing every single day.
Every day. And when I said earlier, when I was talking about the national leadership, I should say international leadership, because there are reps from all those places that Rich just named on in the leadership team currently.
You had a question?
Yeah, when we talk about global and we talk about missions and everything's going to be centered locally, will WCA be a clearinghouse for new things so we would know what was going on that we might like to
That's
participate in?
Very good question.
You know, we have international mission right here that we support.
Yeah.
And we get support from 7 or 8 different churches within the conference.
Right.
And I
So
want to make sure that connectionalism